Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel Learn with Sir Umi. Right, if you are yet to subscribe, please do well and subscribe so that to help us grow and also reach more people. Right, so in the previous section, we have seen how to set up the inventory section. Right, we have seen how to set up the inventory section where we set up this item. Right, now in this section, what we're going to be doing is to build the purchase summary. Right, I told us that the customer and suppliers section is just simply a database where you register the name of the customer and the name of the supplier. Right, so here you don't actually need much. Right, you just enter it to get them registered in the system. Now here, like I told us previously, is actually where our automation starts. Right, now, because we have built the database for the supplier, the purchases is everything that has to do with the supplier. And remember that what we are doing in the purchase register here particularly is to record only inventory items. We only record inventory item in the purchase using the purchase journal, right? So that's what we are using the purchase section to do. Now we can see how the table is arranged. We have the date, we have the bill number, we have the supplier code, that is basically the supplier name, right? Supplier code, supplier name. We have the item code, the item you're buying from the supplier, the item name. We have the quantity, the unit cost, the line total, which is just the total amount. We have the method of payment, if you paid immediately or it's on credit, right? We have the status, which is now going to be either you have posted it or that you have not posted it, anyone, or the transaction is cancelled, whichever one it is. That is all we have here. Now we also have the description and we have the due date. Right, so this is just a simple table. But in the table, you can see that some of these places, some of these cells are highlighted or are colored. Right, these places that are colored means these are the places where you are going to fill. Now, while these places are where you are going to automate. Now we are going to be using the VLOOKUP function to do that. Now, if you have learned how to, or if you actually master the how to use the VLOOKUP function in Excel, now you can see that the same thing we actually did here, right? The same thing we actually did. Where did we apply VLOOKUP? Okay. Anyway, let's go ahead. So we're going to be using VLOOKUP on this section. Now, why are we using VLOOKUP? Remember, this is an automated system. We are using VLOOKUP because we don't want to manually be typing every time we want to enter transaction, right? We want to reduce the amount of manual typing that we are going to be doing in this system. Now, I told us that these are just foundations, right? These are foundations. Everything we have discussed before are just like foundations to the system we are building. Now, here is where we are going to start the automation. Now, here we have the date, we have the bill number, and we have the customer code. Now, if you look at here, the customer code alone is not enough to identify which customer we are dealing with, right? I know that you must have master, if you are building a system, the code, you should be familiar with the code of each of your supplier or each of your customer, right? That is why when you go to the bank, they don't immediately ask you of your name. The first thing that the bank asks you is your account number. So that account number is a code because it's unique only to you. That means nobody else will have that number except you. And that is why anytime they punch that number or enter it in their system, it immediately brings out your information. That's what we are trying to build here. That's the concept we are trying to use. Now, if you look at this place, we are going to be using the VLOOKUP. Now, let's forget about the if function that we are seeing behind it here, right? Let's forget about it first for now. I will still explain why the if function is important, right? I'll still explain why the if function is important. So let's now integrate this the VLOOKUP. Now, what we are trying to do here is we are going to be using the VLOOKUP, right? We're going to be using the VLOOKUP. We're trying to tell Excel that if we have a value in the customer code here, The value may be the supplier 1, it may be supplier 2, it may be supplier 3, it may be supplier 4, 10, 20, whatever number it is. Then it should give us exactly the name that matches that supplier from our suppliers list here. So here you can see we only have 4 suppliers. So we are using that VLOOKUP to look up this value now, this supplier 1 code, so that it will give us the name of that supplier, which in this case supplier 1 is 7up Bottling Company, right? So if you do that, you just have to put your equal to sign. As you know, before you type any formula in Excel, you must always start with your equal to sign. So equal to VLOOKUP, then what value are you looking for? What is your lookup value? So that is what it's asking you here. Your lookup value is this value. Now, when we now say, you have told the cell that this is our VLOOKUP, our lookup value is C5, right, comma, then you put comma. The next question is now, where do you want to look for that value? What is the table array? Now, that's the where it is asking, what is the table? In which table do you want to look for that value? Now, in this case, the table we want to look for that value is inside our supplier. Now, so you go ahead and click on your supplier. Now, select everything here. Yeah, select everything here under this table and drag it down. Now, this sheet is made up of 80 rows. So I will just drag it down to 80 rows. I'll explain why when we get to. I will explain why I made it 80. It's not as if you cannot extend it, but I will explain why we have to make it. Why it is. You have to be concerned about the row number. You can go ahead and make it more. There is no problem. There's no problem at all. You can extend it anytime you want just by adding values to this place, and it will extend it to the numbers you want. But I want to restrict my own for now to row 80, which is now this row you're seeing here. Now you can see that we have selected a table array. Now the next thing we are going to do is now we are going to put our comma sign again. When you put your comma sign, now Excel is trying to ask you again, when I look inside the table, as I'm looking inside the table right now, where exactly, now we are trying to point it directly, where exactly should I look for the value in C5? What value am I looking for in C5? Now we are looking for the value that is any value that is under the column, that is under column, this column B, which is now column row 2, I mean. Any value that is under this column, that is what we are looking for. That is under this column B. Don't mind this. I'm going to remove it. That is under this column B. So we are going to now type, we're going to say 2. Now, because we have column 1 and column 2. So that's the column index number. Now the column index number is index column 2. Right? So this is it. Then you type 2. Now, when you have typed 2, do you need an exact match? That's what the next question that Excel is asking you now. Do you need an exact match? That's the true exact match of what is in that column, or you need an approximate match? Of course, we need an exact match. You can go ahead and type 0. It will give you exact match, or you can just double click on this. You can just double click on this one, and it will give you false. Right? So when you're done with that, you just press your enter. Now you press enter. You just close the bracket and press enter. Now when you do that, you can see that automatically it gives us what? It gives us the name of the supplier that is in that we have selected. So if I change the supplier right now, if I change the supplier to supplier 4, you can see that the name will automatically change because it is in that table. Now when you are done with that, you can go ahead and click and drag. Right? Yeah, so you can see that I have clicked and dragged it, but we are having some errors. Yeah, this is expected. Why? Because this our column number, this our column index number is changing. Now, there are two things that happen here. The columns are changing. If you look at it, the only number that we want to be changing in the whole of this table is the C5, which is now the customer and the supplier's code. That is the only code we want to be changing. Now you can see that even though I have changed the supplier code, it is still giving me error, right? You can see because this is 2, it's giving me 2, right? If I change to 4 again here, it will probably give me 4, but if I change to 3, it's still giving me 3. Now, there is a problem. We only have 4 suppliers. What happens if the suppliers are exhausted, right? What happens if suppliers are exhausted? Now you can see that when I type column 1, when I type supplier 1 now, it did not give me anything because the reference has changed right here. The reference here have changed. So if you click here, you see that everything here, this is, look at this reference. This reference starts with A5, right? A5. This one we have A5. Here it's going to A6. Here is going to A7. Here is now going to what? A8. How many do we have here? How many suppliers do we have here? We have A1, A5, A6, A7, and we have A8, right? But because the cell reference is now moving beyond what beyond the table, that is what you are seeing here. What we are going to do to fix that problem so that this one, anywhere we are, we can actually call it up and it will bring up the option we have here, right? So if I select one here, of course you can see that it will change, but once I move beyond that, it will not give me anything. So let me select 4. It will give me 4. It will give me the item in 4 because we have how many items here? We have 4 vendors here. But when I move beyond this table now, when I move, let's say we have 5. Let's say we have 5. Okay, let me just leave it like that. So let's say we have 5 vendors here. It will still give me 0 because there is no name in the vendor list here. But the problem is that it is changing. It is changing. This is not supposed to change. This column is not supposed to change. This column is supposed to be taking reference from the entire table. No matter where we are in the table, it should be giving us the same thing. It should be giving us the same information, right? So that means as I am moving ahead, you can see as I'm moving ahead, it will not be giving me the value because I have moved beyond the rules that are here. There is no more rules here. So anytime I want to, let's say this supplier, I want the supplier to appear in the next row. That means I will have to copy this supplier and paste it here again, right, to duplicate it, and which in a database setting is not supposed to be so. In the database setting, this is actually wrong, right? So it's not supposed. I'm supposed to have one unique identifier in this sheet, one vendor per one code per vendor, right? I don't want to have a multiple of the same code in this particular master sheet or supplier sheet. So if you do that here, if I select it again, you can see that it is breaking. Now this is not what we actually want. Now we want a situation whereby if we select this place can have multiple of the same vendor, no problem, because we can purchase multiple times from the same vendor, no problem. But we want anywhere we are, if you select it, you should be able to call up this number. So the problem is because the columns, right, the index number, or should I say the column reference or the cell reference is changing. Now the cell reference of this item is changing based on which cell we are in. Now what we need is that this supplier cell reference should not change no matter where we are in the in this table or in this in this journal. It should not change. So we are going to lock this. We're going to put a cell reference by locking this, which means we are going to put our what $sign in front of both the column and the row. So I'll just press my F4. So you just put your $sign in front. I don't know, my F4 is not working. So I will just put it manually. I'll just put the $sign here in front of this. And also in front of this. Then I'll come back here. I also put $sign here. And also here. Now press enter. Now when I press this enter, see what happened. So I will drag this one down, right? So you can see wherever I am, now you can see that the customer is coming up. Now this is an error. You can see because we actually have the supplier code here, where you are seeing it right here, the same supplier, but this one doesn't have any name. So how come this one now has the name of the customer? Because the reference is now from the same table wherever we are, from the same thing exactly that we are telling that don't shift anywhere, just look inside that table and under the under the column 2 you will see that reference. So this one actually is irrelevant now. This one is irrelevant, right? Why this one? Because it doesn't have any name. You can see it. That's why we have it here, right? That's why we have it here. So now we have fixed that problem of the cell shifting. The next thing is, what of this error message that we are seeing? Now this error message is actually not necessarily an error message. It's just telling you that, okay, there is no reference transaction here. There is no any other reference transaction or data here. That's why you are seeing this error message. But to fix that error message so that you will not be seeing it, that is where we have to use our if function, right? So the if function is a conditional statement that we're going to give it. The if function is a conditional statement that we're going to give it. So you just go back to your formula, type your if function, then you now say equal to C5 if it's equal to nothing, right? If it is equals to 0 or nothing, then you tell it comma, you tell it to return what? To return nothing. Otherwise, if there is value in it, it should give us what? It should give us the VLOOKUP we just entered. So when you do that, you can just go, because I did not add the closing bracket for the if function. That is why we are having this error message. So you can just go ahead and click yes, it will add it for you. So you can see that we have added the if function. So if I drag it, you can see that everything here has disappeared. So as simple as that, we have done our first automation. So wherever we are, if we select any vendor, it automatically collects the details of that vendor, and you can see how it is now automated wherever we are, right? So that is just as simple as that. Now we have done the first part of the automation. The next part of the automation is what is the item code. Now we are dealing with inventory, right? We don't want a situation whereby we always have to be typing. So if I select the inventory item number 3, I should be able to have this one as the inventory item. If I select the inventory item number 2, I should be able to have this as the inventory item. So the same thing we did here. So in this case, what I will actually do right here now is I will just because it is the same, basically the same thing, I'll just copy this formula, right? We're using the same formula here. I'll just copy this formula and I'll paste it right here. Now I will make changes. We are dealing with items now. So instead of what? Instead of this supplier, I will now type what? I will now type items, right? I will now type item, right? I'll type items. Now you can see the table setting. We have in the item code, we have the item name, which is what we want to automate right now. We have item code, and it's also 80 rows, right? We have 80 rows. So this is where it's going to stop. Now if I come back to the purchase here, what I will do is just click here and I will type item. Just type items, because I copied the formula. It's going to be easy for me. So once I type item, I can just go ahead and press enter. Right, it is still going to be giving me error because the cell reference is taking sales reference from what? It's taking from C5. It's taking this code because we have not told it that, okay, this reference has to change to this is going to be what? E8 now, E5 now, while this is also going to be E5, right? Once I do that, I will just press my enter. I can see that we have automated that. We have already entered this. So you can click and drag, right? You can click and drag. So that's the same thing, basically the same thing we have done here. So it's simple, as simple as that. We have done the two automation automatically without stress, because once you get it here, you can also get it here. Here we are looking for it in this one. We are looking for the VLOOKUP is going to be on the item, while here is going to be on the supplier, because this supplier, under the supplier, that's where we have the name. under the item. That's where we have the item name under the item list here, right? The item list here. So that is that on that. Now the next thing on this sheet we are going to see, this is just a simple, this is, you are going to type this manually. Now then the formula. Now this formula too, we have to apply. Normally it's going to be, it's supposed to be what? It's supposed to be our what do I say? So it's supposed to be, what? It's supposed to be this. It's supposed to be our quantity multiplied by our unit. Of course, it's going to give us the same thing. But what if there is an error, right? What if there's an error in this item? What if there's value here and there's no value here? So that is where we have to add a conditional formatting, right? This conditional formatting is going to, this conditional formatting now, right, like I told us, this is just the unit cost, right? This is just the quantity times the unit cost is going to give us the total amount or line amount, whatever you call it, is total amount, right? So we have this this value. Now this formula, what this formula is going to do is, if or this G5 is equals to nothing, or the H5 is equals to nothing, then it should give us nothing. Of course, if there is no value here, there is no value here, it should give us nothing. Or if there is value here and there is no value here, it should also, it should at the same time give us nothing, right? That's what we are trying to say here, right? So you can see that here, because there is no value here, there's value here, it's still giving us nothing. And if there is value here, if there's value here under the unit cost and there's no value here, it will still give us this nothing. So what it means is that these two are important for you to get this value. So if I remove this now, if I remove this conditional formatting, right, you can see that it will give me this value. So in this case, even if there is no value here, right, you can see what is happening. It will still be giving me this message because there is no value. But I don't want it like that. I want this error message. I don't want to be seeing this zero. I want it to be showing nothing, right? So that is just a logic you can actually. So if you do it by saying the unit cost multiplied by the quantity, is still going to give you the same result. But to add more professionalism into it, that is where you have to add this if function, so that it will give you, it will understand your conditional formatting. It will understand that, okay, there is need for these values to be entered. What's going on? So there is need for these values to be entered. That is why we are having this, right? So it's important for you to know. So you can basically use your this quantity multiplied by this, and it will give you this result. So drag down, right? You drag down, and whenever you select an item, right, enter the quantity. You enter quantity, right? So enter quantity, enter unit cost, it will calculate it. Now we have the method of payment. You have to always indicate whether it's purchase or it's purchase you made on credit, that is you paid, you not pay immediately or you paid later. So status posted, you can just go ahead and add description, and that's it. So the date, you have to make sure that the dates of the transactions are imputed. So that is that on this particular section. You can see that we have automated our first journal. This is just as simple as that. We have automated it, even though this is just a kind of a database also where you enter the transaction, because of course every accounting application you must always do the data entry. So this is just a data entry place, but in this case we are not going to type here. All you need to do is select the item code, enter the item customer supplier code. It will give you the supplier's name, and select the code. It will give you the item code. Then enter the quantity, enter the unit, right? Yes, this unit cost should have been automated, but because we are dealing with purchases, right, I won't want a situation whereby the item code, this place is locked to only changes that are made from from our item, right? Because we believe that prices may change when you go to buy items, so there's no need of pulling this unit cost from our inventory list here. There's no need of pulling it from our inventory list. So what we do is to leave this one dynamic, so that if the price of this particular item change, you can actually change it during your purchase, enter the exact amount during your purchase, and that will be that. But when it comes to your sales here, right, your sales here will be a little bit different. So let me just clear up some of this. Let me clear up some of this. Right, so that we have a cleaner sheet to work with. Right, so yeah, I was just doing this to test the data, or to test my workings. Right, so here, when it comes to sales, now in the case of sales, we don't necessarily need to be typing the sales this thing manually, right? The sales amount, I mean the unit cost when we are selling manually. So it has to pull out that information from what? From our inventory list here, from our inventory list here. So the standard selling price is this. Now this is what we have as the standard selling price. So this standard selling price is supposed to come here automatically, right? That's the unit price here. We don't actually need to be typing it. So once we select this item, right? So once we select any item here, let's say this customer, right, and we select item number 2, so you can see what happened. Automatically it brings up this information about the item. Now it also brings up the unit cost, the unit price here, right? Then it multiply by 20, because this is the quantity that is there, multiply by 20, and it's giving us this amount. So we actually don't need to be typing this, because once we select this item, it should be able to call up this immediately for us. Now the payment method, credit transfer, whatever method we choose now, and this is your cost of sales. Now we are going to do that. We are going to do the next one, which is now this. We're going to build the sales register, right? Okay, let's do the sales register here too. Now the sales register is not difficult, right? It's basically the same thing we have done so far. Now if you look at the formatting, the table, you can see how the tables are structured. We have the date, we have the invoice number, customer code, while here we have the date, the bill number, suppliers code. So you can see the these three basic tables are the same. We have the name, we have the item, right? We also have the name, we have the item, we have the item name, which is basically the same thing. We have the quantity, and we also have the quantity, we have the unit cost, but in this case we have what? We have the unit price, which is now the selling price. Then we have the standard. This is where changes start to happen. Right here, we can see we have the unit cost, we have the line amount, that's the total amount. Then we have the amount, the sales value, that's this multiplied by this. That's what we have this. So basically the same thing. All you need to do is copy this formula, right? You can copy this formula right now. So you copy this formula, right? So when you copy the formula, you come to this place, and you just paste it. You just paste that formula, right? When you paste that formula, you press your OK. Now we have an error message. Why are we having an error message? We're having an error message because we are still taking reference from where? We're still taking reference from C5. Of course, it's C5, right? It's C5, but we are looking at where? We are looking at supplier, right? On the normal, we are looking at supplier, and the code here is saying customer. So if the code here is saying customer and we are looking at supplier, that means there's an error. So what we basically need to do here is do the same thing we did previously. Just type customer. So when you type customers, right, and you press enter, so you can see that it will now pull all this information from the customer, because the tables are arranged almost the same way, right? The tables are arranged almost the same way. We have this customer code start from the row 5, because the customer code starts from row 5, the supplier code starts from row 5, the item code starts from row 5. You can see how the tables are formatted almost in the same format. So there is a consistency in everything we are building. So here too, all I need to do once I change that, this sales reference is basically going to be the same. So if I do that, I'll just click and drag down, it will give me the same thing. Then here I'll apply the same thing. Here you can apply the same thing, right? If you don't want to copy this formula, you can come back here, because has to do with item. So I'll just copy the formula on the item, right? Come back here, then come to this place and now paste that formula we have already created earlier on. So it will give us the same thing. So I'll just drag this down. I'm saying why I'm doing this now, because I have already done it initially. So it's basically the same formula we are using, because we are looking at the same table, right? So when you do that and you come back here, the same way we applied on the line item, the same formula we use here, that's the same thing. So it basically means that you can just say unit cost multiplied by this. But as a professional accountant or as a professional system builder, what you need to do, you have to include something that when somebody look at it, you say, this formula is wow, is somehow. That is why you are different from a regular person. So you just apply this formula, just if or error, if or G5, which is now this, G5, which is now this quantity, is equals to nothing, then it should be able to give us nothing. If G5, right, which is this the quantity, is equals to nothing, right, this thing means nothing, that means 0, you can put 0, or H5 is equals to 0, then it should give us what? It should give us nothing. Otherwise, it should multiply this by this and give us whatever the value is. So that is what we have here. So you click and drag, right? So the method of payment, you select method of payment. Now this we are going to come back to this unit cost, cost of goods sold. We are going to come back to this particular section when we are done building the inventory summary. That is when we are going to integrate this cost of goods sold. That's where we are going to integrate it when we are done building the inventory summary. That is when we are going to look at that. Now, when we come back, we are going to look at how to actually build our sales receipt and our payment receipt or payment journal, right? Sales receipt and payment journal. So these are another table or another sheet or another journal or module that we are going to actually build, so that it will help us. Remember that the transactions that are coming here on our purchases, they are either made and paid immediately or they are paid later. So if these transactions are paid immediately, we don't need to use, for purchases, we don't need to use payment again, while for sales, we don't need to use sales receipt. But if they are not paid immediately, that is when we need to use these items, the sales and the receipt. Now, I have told us countless times in this channel that every accounting application you see is built in modules. Now, each module performs a specific function. There is no one module that performs different function. Now, when you come to invoice does only the function of invoice. When it comes to sales receive record only sales transactions that are paid immediately. Now, when it comes to purchases, we can have purchase order, we can have purchase order, and we can have that purchase order perform the function of purchase order. So in this case, this is our purchase order now. This particular process journal is our purchase order, but we have to indicate whether we are paying immediately or we are paying later. So that is what we actually did here. I'm using that concept to build this system. So we have the sales, right? The sales is basically to record all credit receipt payment, all the sales that we have made previously but we are not paid for. That is where we have the receipt. We use it to receive the payment for transactions that we are sold on credit and we are not paid for. That's where we use the sales receipt for. And we have the payment to suppliers for purchases that we have made in the previous period or in the previous month or in the previous days to record their payment here. They will also have the expenses. This is just general admin expenses, right? This is just general admin expenses. Any other expenses that has nothing to do with inventory and any direct cost. This is where we record such transaction. Now we have the journal, the manual journal. I have also made it clear in this channel. I said that there are situations whereby you want to perform a particular transaction in your accounting application, and you discover that there is no module, there is no specific module that handles that particular kind of transaction. So you have the transaction the way you want the transaction to appear in your mind, but you actually don't know how to. You don't have a particular option that address the issue. For example, we have depreciation. There is no accounting application that treat depreciation, that say, okay, this particular module or this particular section is just for you to record depreciation. Of course, we have sections that record asset, but we don't have a particular module that say, okay, use this to record only depreciation. So in that case, you need what we call journal, manual journal. The same way you'll be doing it in your books, that's the same way you have to do it here. You have the debit, you have the account, you have the description, we have the debit, and we have the credit transaction. So every other thing here, you can just leave it just to make it more look more systematic, or to make it look more professional. That is where we are having all these tags to differentiate and to make sure that anybody that is looking at the system say, well, this is a professional work actually. So we have this that's where the journal, manual journal entry, you can see you use this for adjustment and non-operational transaction. So things like depreciation, of course, you use this to record them, right? You use this to record them. So after that, that is just basically what we have in this, right? So it's basically the same thing we did here. Now, on the side of our receipts, you can see same thing: date, receipt number, customer code, because we are dealing with customers. Of course, you have customer code, and we have this. So you can just go ahead and copy this formula, right? So that's exactly what I did. So you copy this formula, you come to your sales receipt here, and you just paste it, right? You just paste it, right? Because it's the same customer, it's taking reference from the same customer. So you just drag the formula down, right? So we have 80 rows, right? So this is it. Now that is that. So as simple as that, that is all, right? That's all right here. Then under the supplier, which is now the payment, you go back to your purchases. You can just copy this formula. I'm doing this while you're seeing there are transactions in my own, because I've already entered this formula initially. So I'll just go ahead and paste it here. I'm showing you how I did it. So I paste it here, and I'll drag this down. I'll drag it down. It will give me the same thing basically. So you can see that is what I did here. So as simple as that. Now here, that is where we are going to do some little work, because we have the date, we have the reference number, we have that's the transaction reference number, we have the customer, the account. Now this account is basically going to be a data validation, right? We have shown us how to do that. So this account few accounts here, if you look at our list, these are the accounts we are going to use under our expenses. These are the 6 accounts or 7 accounts we are going to be using. So if you look at our expenses here, you can see that we have those accounts are actually what we have here. So here we are going to, let me clear this a little bit so that we won't be confused. Yeah, so when I do that, clear this a little bit, and this every other thing here is just something you can type, but this is just where the main issue is. Now you can see, if you look at the table, we only have this item. So let's look at how to do this. This is simple. I can copy any of these formulas. In fact, I copied any of these formulas. I copied any of this formula and I paste it here. Now when I do that, you can see, because there is no reference to what I'm looking for, that's why you are seeing empty. Because why you are seeing empty is because of this conditional formatting you're seeing. That's why it is showing you empty, because there is no match for it. Now what happened? Because I'm looking at the wrong table. And which table am I looking at? I'm looking at where you can see here. From here now you can know that there is a problem, right? So it's supposed to start from here. I'm looking at the wrong table, so not applicable, not available, whatever you interpret as error message to be. I'm looking at the wrong table. So instead of looking at the customer, because it is an account that I'm looking for, so instead of looking at the customer table, I should be looking at where? I should be looking at my what? My chart of account. I should be looking for it in my chart of account. So once I click on chart of account and I press enter, this is what we see have, because the error message is still here. Now, okay, let's quickly fix this. The error message is still here, right? Better still, let's just start afresh. So it's going to be equal to, if, sorry, let me say VLOOKUP. Now we are looking for this value. The lookup value is C5, right? C5, right? Where are we looking? What's the lookup table? Our lookup table is going to be our what? Our chart of account. So I'll go ahead and select everything under the chart of account table, right? If I select everything under the chart of account table, of course, don't forget to add your $sign, right? Press your F4, add your $sign, then you lock it in, then you put your comma, right? When you have done that, you put your comma. Now, what are you looking for? Which index, which column? We can basically tell that is column 2, right? It's going to be column 2. So it's going to be column 2, which is now the account name, column 2. Do we need an exact match or an approximate match? We need an exact match. So you can just go ahead and select exact match, or you type 0, type false, or you just type 0. It will give you the same thing. Then you press your enter, right? So when you do that, you can see it has brought out this account code, account name for you. Now, the next thing we are going to do is to integrate our if function, so that we can clear this error message. So what we are going to do here is to add our if function. So it's going to be if this. Some people you can use if error, but I prefer using this one because it is more clear to anyone that is looking at the formula. If C5 is equals to let me use 0 in this case, is equals to 0 comma, then is equals to 0 comma, then return nothing, right? Return nothing, right? Otherwise, give me this value, right? Because I have to close the bracket. That's why, and I did not add the closing bracket. That's what we have in this error message. So I'll click yes, right? So you can see I've added that. You can see, even though I did not I did not use the same format I used, I just typed 0. It will give me the same thing, because there is no is the same. This code means the same thing in Excel. It means 0, right? So that's what we have here. So if I select any account here, right, it will give me that. Now I want to explain something very important here. So there is no need, right, when you are building a system like this, there is no need of carrying everything. See, we have how many accounts here? We have close to we have about 27 accounts here, but each of these accounts have places where they operate, have places where they relate to. So I don't necessarily need to include all of this account in my expense account here, as we can see. No. So I have made it in a way that, okay, I know that I have only these 7 accounts that are going for admin expenses. Any other expenses, these are the only accounts that are operating under that place. So there is no point of me adding all of them. So that's why the data validation I did here, I have to select only the 7 accounts I have in that list to be here. You can see that we have few of them here. So that anytime you are selling, in fact, it will be easy for you to memorize. It will be easier for you to memorize anytime, anywhere. Because you know that, okay, this account code is for this account code is for this. So you don't necessarily need to be looking at everything in the chart of account before you can select or identify the account you want to use. So you can see this is how we have done this, and this is the only thing we are doing here. All right, the next one is what is our manual journal. The manual journal is simple as well, right? The first thing first is what? The account code, right? The account code, which is also this is coming from the entire chart of account. You can see it's a little bit much, right? Then we have the account name. So in this case, you can just basically copy this, right? Copy this one, come to your account here, right? You can just paste it, right? When you do that, it will give you the same thing because they're taking reference from the same place, right? So when you do that, you can just go ahead and click and drag, right? Don't mind this description. It's just description you can use for anything. So here in this particular sheet, if you have a debit transaction, you must always have a credit transaction for that as well. So that is why you are seeing debit and credit here. Now the tag is just to identify whether it's a non-cash transaction, whether it's a cash transaction. If it's a cash transaction, it's going to be operating, it's going to be investing, it's going to be financing anyone. Then the description or the status, you can say paid, posted, just to identify that. So that is that on this section. When we come back in the next section, we will see how to start our the automation engine. This is what I call the automation engine. Now this auto journal is going to consolidate everything that we have done in the previous every transaction that we have entered, from our purchases to our sales to our receipt to our payment to our expense to our manual journal entry. That is what this auto journal is going to do that. And from this auto journal, that is where we are going to be able to extract our what? We are going to be able to extract our general journal. We're going to be able to use it to extract our general journal, right? From this general journal now, then we can now extract our trial balance. When we extract our now, this general journal is one of the tables, or one of the sheets that mostly auditors ask for, because if this general journal is not accurate, your trial balance is not going to be accurate, right? So these are one of the data document or the report that auditors usually ask for when they are building when they are conducting their audit, to see the movement of transaction in each account, right? This is what they ask for. Then we have the trial balance. Of course, it checks the arithmetic accuracy of your postings, right? Yeah. So from what we are seeing here, we can see that this trial balance is not okay. That means there are some errors we need to fix, but that is not a problem. That is not a problem. It's because of the way we enter the transaction as we are doing this. Then we have the inventory summary, which I told us we are going to build when we are going to build it as well. So when we are done building that, that is when we are going to integrate it in our sales, in our sales register, your sales journal. That's when we are going to integrate it. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Thank you very much for staying tuned up to this section, up to this moment. And please, if you have not liked, subscribe, or share this video with your friends, do so that we can grow and it will motivate us to do more videos for you. And if you have any specific need, actually, if you have any specific system you want me to, any type of business at all you are into, you want me to build a system for you, just leave it in the comment section and I'll do well to build a system that handle your specific need for your business. We are in the business of customization and automation in businesses using AI and every other tools that we can lay our hands to, so that we reduce the human error, and reduce human input. So everybody wants a tool that actually suits its own business nature, or its own kind of business, or how it does its own business. So that's what everybody is trying to avoid, all these luxury applications that when you purchase them, at the end of the day you discover that they are not meeting up to your business needs. So if you need any system at all that you want us to build for you, just leave it in the comment section and I will do well to develop a system that handles that particular need. So thank you very much. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one.